Good afternoon or good evening, councillors, officers and members of the public. Welcome to the 6th of September 2023 Ordinary Meeting of Council. I will now open the meeting with the first item on the evening's agenda, which is the reading of the prayer. Almighty God, be with us as we work for the people of the Shire of Moorabool. Grant us wisdom that we may care for the Shire as true stewards of your creation. May we be aware of the great responsibilities placed upon us. Help us to be just in all our dealings, and may our work prosper for the good of all. Amen. I will now read the acknowledgement of country. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and the Aboriginal elders of other communities who may be here today. Council, in accordance with Moorabool Shire Council's governance rules, the Council will be recording and live streaming this meeting. The Moorabool News and Star Weekly have also been granted permission to record this meeting. Councillors, I can confirm that all councillors are in attendance at this meeting except for Councillors Tatchell and Councillor Dudzik, who have put in apologies for this meeting. Councillors, we have the minutes from the 2nd of August 2023 Ordinary Meeting of Council to be confirmed. Do I have a councillor to move the minutes be confirmed? Move Councillor Berry, second Councillor Edwards. Is there any dissent? We'll now put a motion to a vote. All in favour? I declare the motion carried. Item 7, councillors, does anyone have a conflict of interest to declare to tonight's meeting? No conflicts of interest. Thank you. Item 8 is public question time. Councillors, we have received one question from members of the public to be considered at the meeting. The question is from Mr John Kowalski, and the question and response will be read by the CEO, Mr Derek Madden.
Thank you. Through the Chair, following the release of IBAC's Operation Sandon report, will Council now please adopt and implement the 5 recommendations the Local Government Inspectorate made in July 2022 regarding interactions with developers? At this stage, Council is undertaking a detailed review of the recommendations coming out of the IBAC report, and Council will take a pragmatic approach when considering potential changes and continue to ensure current governance practices are maintained to ensure the integrity and transparency of Council and councillor interactions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr CEO. Item 9 is petitions. Councillors, there are no petitions for this meeting, and we'll move to the next item on the agenda. Item 10 is presentations and deputations. Again, there are no presentations or deputations, and we'll move to the next item on the agenda. Item 11 is Chief Executive Officer reports, and 11.1, the first report is the place naming policy draft for public exhibition. There are no registered speakers to this item, and no alternate motions have been received. Councillors, you have a recommendation in the papers before you regarding the report. Do I have a councillor to move the recommendation?
I have a question, if I may, Mr Mayor.
Yep, Councillor
Sullivan.
Sullivan.
Questions. How long will be the advertising period? Because it's not nominated in the recommendation, so that's the first one. Second, could someone advise me what a gender equity name is, in the sense that if you don't have, not like the French that have some wording in front of it, so that's another. How do you define that? So that's what's that going to look like?
Celeste?
Yep, so through the Chair, the minimum days that we can actually put it out for consultation is 30. That's from a council perspective. It then goes out for consultation when it goes to GNV, Geographic Names Victoria. So, but from a council perspective, it's 30 days.
Our
consultation.
Okay,
yes,
righto.
That's correct.
My second question, how do you actually get a gender equity name in a street name or something?
So, through the Chair, we've been doing a little bit of research in this area. So we're looking back at the history in Moorabool, trying to look at what is available. It's getting that balance between a male-centric name and a female-centric name, and then making sure that we're doing it through a gender impact assessment, things like that.
Yeah, but what does it mean? I mean, the only one I know definitely is one in Buninyong called Granny White Lane. Well, there's definitely one that does have gender diversity, but how's it going to pan out?
Through Terry.
Through the
CEO.
chair. You're correct, because a lot of the street names use Smith and Jones and whatever they would be, so they're non-gender specific. I suppose it's in the documentation that we would submit for the naming, but you're quite correct, is that the indication from the sign may not give you any indication that that is the case.
Could I also, and the other question I have, and then I have another one. It says here, must be in standard English or recognised Australian Indigenous language. What's the difference between standard English and the Australian Indigenous language?
Celeste.
Through the chair, I'd have to take that one on notice. I'm not entirely sure.
Could I also suggest, and I'd move the recommendation with this, if I may, another dot point, the name not be divisive, and also not sounding similar to another name. You can get names that sound the same but have different spelling, so we need to understand that sometimes if I were to say a word, it might be a different spelling to something else, so we just need to make sure that don't get caught up in that. And with those inclusions, with the indulgence of my councillor colleague, I'd move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Second to Councillor Berry.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. But I'd just like to add also, just following on from what Councillor Sullivan was saying, that with the gender specific, if you look at names like Peter, these days Peter is a girl's name and a boy's name, so we take that into consideration as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillors, any dissent or any further questions? No? All in favour? I declare the motion carried. Councillors, the next item is 11.2, Belgravia Kids lease of the Darley Civic Pub Gym. There are no speakers to this item and no alternate motions have been received. So, councillors, you have a recommendation in the papers before you regarding this report. Do I have a councillor to move the recommendation?
I just have a question, if I may,
Yep.
please.
Councillor Sullivan.
I have a couple of questions, but one is, I note that the price that this is proposed to monthly rental is less than the valuer's suggested figure. So the question is why? Secondly, we've got an annual fee of proposal. This is $290 for utilities and what have you. Given the volatility of utilities at the moment, has that been factored in? I mean, everyone knows what their electricity bill has gone up in recent times. Are we actually ensuring that we're covering that?
Celeste.
Yep, so through the chair, the total of the rent is $1,500 less than the market rent.
Yes.
But it is within the ballpark. So I will be bringing a report to council stipulating what each of the market areas are within that lettable area.
Yep.
In the next coming weeks. In the actual lease itself for the operating costs, that is subject to CPI increases.
Yeah, but sorry, just if I may, Mr Mayor.
Yes.
At the moment, CPI increases are minimal compared to where utility prices are going through the roof. I mean, you've only got to just look at your electricity bill, you know what's going on. So I suppose what I'm asking is, are we making adequate provision that that's going to cut it going forward?
So through the chair, I would have to take that one on notice to see.
We're going to be making a decision tonight.
Mr CEO.
Through the chair, I suppose with the term of the lease, because it was proposed to be a longer term, we have shortened it. But you're correct. It doesn't allow for those hyperinflation kind of impacts that are happening in the marketplace. I suppose from our point of view, is we just felt that was much the same way as we try and use CPI as a guide. Within this lease, it was put in at that level. Because in the absence of something better, which I think is not a poor excuse, but it's generally what's used in a lot of cases. So the shortening of the lease term really diminishes the risk to council of significant costs.
Could I also ask, why are we proposing in the lease include a report of membership data and attendance monthly? I don't think that this is a commercial business, and that's commercially in confidence to Belgrade. I don't think that should be in the lease at all.
Mr CEO.
I'll have to take that one on notice. Yeah.
Because I mean, they are a business, right? and to disclose their clientele list and usage. And I think it's really puts them in an awkward position. If I was running the business, I'd say no way, because that's commercial in confidence.
Through the chair, if I go back to the original Belgravia lease, and I'm assuming that's a repeat of what was there previously, it was around us trying to get an indication of the local community that were using the facility. But I do understand what you're saying around
Well,
it's a commercial operation as
Through
such.
you, Mr Mayor, if I may, in that paragraph that talks about adding that, it says the current lease does not include any expectation from the tenant to report on a regular attendance and member data. So I think why would be asking that going forward?
Through the chair, I think it would be for that reason, so we can actually understand from the Murrible community who's actually using that facility. I'm not too sure if you want to add anything, Lee, to that.
Through the chair, so the data that we would be asking for Belgravia would be non-historic data. It wouldn't have any personal information relating to the participants. But what it would provide us with is participation information that enables us to have a good indication of how the facility is being used, the demand for the facility, and whether or not we would be planning for other expansion or other locations if the demand is there.
Thank you.
I just can't support that, to be honest with you, on that basis. I think it's an infringement. If this was a commercial lease, the landlord doesn't ask the tenant what their membership is, etc., etc. You don't do it. And I don't think we should either.
Okay. Well, councillors, you have a recommendation in the papers before you regarding this report. Councillor Sullivan has indicated.
I'll move the recommendation with a question, Mr Mayor, if I may.
Thank you.
Just in relation, did we give consideration, I know they're a commercial organisation in Belgravia, but it is for community purposes, and it was previously run by a community group to provide that service. Did we give any consideration to a discounted rate based on the community, its community use?
Celeste?
So through the chair, no, not in this instance. We just did it at the market rate.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards has moved the motion. Seconded?
I'm actually happy to second it too, with a question sort of similar to Councillor Edwards. Thank you, Mr Mayor, by the way. Do we know if, so they are getting the discount and it is an outside business. My question is around, would we know if the discount is passed on through the members, given that they are the community group, the local group that are attending those sessions? Do you take that into account?
Mr CEO.
I think through the chair, I think the rate we're charging is roughly in line. It's not too far. No, we don't get that information at the moment.
Thank you. No, I'm happy to second that, Mr Mayor.
Councillors, we have a mover and a second for the motion. Councillor Sullivan has indicated his dissent. As a mover of the motion, Councillor Edwards, I'll invite you to speak for it.
Yeah, certainly, Mr Mayor. So obviously this particular site's got a long history in relation to people wanting to be multiple users. As it says in the report, it can be used for basketball, but it has been a very successful at attracting young people into gymnastics, which is great for junior health and wellbeing. I think that the fact that we actually are receiving very close to commercial rates of rents, I think is very important. I also think it's very important that we have an understanding of the utilisation so that we can use that data to grow or predict our future growth requirements. We all know how fast our Shire is growing, and who would have predicted it had gone from, I think it was originally 230 now to 600, it says in the report. So I would argue that this is a good outcome for the residents of Murrible Shire.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Sullivan, I'd like to invite you to speak.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My opposition to this is based on the fact we haven't had the proper data to make the assessment on the valuation. We had the radio station come forward some time ago. We've had other things come forward, and we were told we were going to get a report on this whole matter, on this leasing of these facilities. We haven't received it. So we are making a decision here in a vacuum of sorts, and that's what my issue is. These are council-owned facilities. I understand, we all appreciate that, but they're community. We want to make sure we get the best return for the community for these facilities which council owns on their behalf. The other opposition I had is I think it's unfair to actually ask them to supply your data, which I would argue is commercially in confidence, and I think at the very least this should just be put on a month-to-month until we get all that information and make a proper assessment and evaluation. Here we are flying by the seat of our pants once again, making a decision without adequate information to support that. So that's my opposition. I have no problem with what they're doing there. I have no problem with the price, but I think we do need to have some guidance as to how these were arrived at. And we haven't even, we're told in the report that there was a valuation done by an independent valuation. I've not seen it. Has anyone seen it? Have they? Any councillor seen it? I doubt it. So that's my opposition. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. As a seconder of the motion, Councillor Berry, I invite you to speak.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My positioning on this is this group is the only major gymnastic group in the area. It does support a lot of students that are interested in the gym work there. As for getting the detail, I think for future use moving forward, if we don't have those statistics, we don't know how to manage that in our area. So, yeah, that's my position on that dot point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Berry. Councillor Minari, would you like to speak on the matter or have any questions on the matter?
I do have one question. Just in the report it mentions about the report on regular attendance and member data. The attendance, I totally understand how we're getting those figures, but do we need to put member data? Like, what does member data mean? Like, that says to me that it's their personal names and addresses. Could I just have an answer on where it mentions member data and how do we track that? What does that entail?
Lee, would you like to respond to that?
Through the chair, so typically member data will relate to age cohort, gender, and not much more than that. It certainly doesn't include any personal information.
Okay.
There are requirements around the sharing of personal information between parties, so we would not be asking for Belgravia to be sharing any personal information other than information that is helpful for planning.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Minari. Councillor Edwards, as the mover of the first item, as a mover of the item, I invite you to close the debate.
No worries, thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I just want to rebuke some of the facts here that we're flying by the seat of our pants, but not. We have a market rate that's been put in the paper. We don't need to see the actual report. That's why it's in. We don't actually need to see a copy of that because the figures are in the report. I think it's a really good outcome for the community. I'm actually amazed that there's actually 600 participants. There's going to be a lot of capital improvement. I think they talk about adding $50,000 worth of equipment in there almost immediately. If anything, I probably would have argued that we should have given them a discount as a community organisation. We are familiar with Belgravia and some of the organisations and how they operate. Quite often they would charge councils to run facilities. In this case, we're actually making a profit. I think, well, we're regaining our expenditure back. I won't say we're making a profit, and I think it's a good outcome.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillors, we'll now put the motion to a vote. All in favour? Against? I declare the motion carried. Councillors, the next item is item 11.3, annual review and update of the governance rules for public exhibition. There's no speakers to the item and no alternate motion has been received. So, councillors, you have a recommendation in the papers before you regarding the report. Do I have a councillor to move the recommendation?
I have a question, if I may.
Yep, Councillor Sullivan.
My question relates to, we say we're putting an exhibition, we don't nominate the time period. I think it should be part of a motion when it says go out for exhibition. It should say what the time period is because it's open-ended.
Thank you. Celeste?
Maybe a default one, we should have it regardless.
Yep. So through the chair, the actual consultation period will be from the 7th of September to the 5th of October. So we're keeping it open for 28 days.
But what I'm asking is it should be here.
Yes. Agreed.
And if recommendation gets up, I would ask that that be put in as a point 4, and I would move that way if need be.
Thank you. So Councillor Sullivan is... Councillor Sullivan, can I say that you've moved that item with a point 4?
I did say that, Mr Mayor.
Yep,
correct?
thank you.
Second that with a question, if I may.
Yes.
Mr Mayor, just in relation to the question we had from Mr Kowalski tonight on the government's updates, will that form part of your consideration over the next 30 days of consultation?
Mr CEO?
With Mr Kowalski's around the
IBAC.
The IBAC.
Governance.
That's a separate report that we're going to be bringing to council, and then if council feels so, it will be a separate process to this. There's quite a lot in that report, so I think it's better that they're kind of kept separate.
I'm able to second that.
Councillors, we have a mover and a seconder with an addition of point 4. Councillors, is there any further questions or dissent? Okay, we'll now put the motion to a vote. All in favour? I declare the motion carried. Councillors, move to item 12, which is the customer care and advocacy reports, and item 12.1 is the Audit and Risk Advisory Committee of Council reports. There's no registered speakers to this item, and again, no alternate motions. Councillors, you have a recommendation in the papers before you regarding the report. Do I have a councillor move it?
I'm happy to move it,
Councillor
Mr Mayor.
Berry has moved it. Councillor Minari has seconded. Councillors, are there any questions or dissent? We'll put the motion to a vote. Councillors, all in favour? Declare the motion carried. Item 12.2 is the 2017 to 2021 Moorabool Shire Council Plan Outstanding Actions Progress Report, June 2023. There are no registered speakers and no alternate motions. Again, councillors, there's a recommendation in the papers before you regarding this item. Do I have a councillor to move the recommendation? Councillor Berry, seconded Councillor Minari. Councillors, any questions or any dissent? No. Put the motion to a vote. Councillors, all in favour? Declare the motion carried. Councillors, item 12.3 is the 2021 to 2025 Moorabool Shire Council Plan Progress Report for Year 2, Quarter 4, June 2023. Again, no registered speakers and no alternate motions. So, councillors, there is the recommendation in the papers before you regarding this item. Do I have a councillor to move the recommendation? Moved Councillor Edwards. Second, Councillor Minari. Councillors, is there any questions or dissent? Councillors, we'll put it to vote. All in favour? I declare the motion carried. Councillors, item 13 is the Community Assets and Infrastructure Reports. Item 13.1 is the Capital Improvement Program and the quarterly and final report for June 2023. No registered speakers. Councillors, you have a recommendation in the papers before you regarding this report. Do I have a councillor to move the recommendation?
Recommendation, Mr Mayor.
Moved Councillor Edwards. Any seconder?
I'm happy to second it, Mr Mayor.
Seconded Councillor Berry. Councillors, any questions or dissent? We'll put the motion to a vote. Councillors, all in favour? Declare the motion carried. Item 13.2 is the response to Notice of Motion 296, Population Growth and the Needs of the Dales Creek Community. Again, there's no speakers to this item and there's no alternate motion. So, councillors, you have a recommendation in the papers before you regarding this report. Do I have a councillor to move the recommendation?
I'll move it with a question.
Councillor Minari.
Just on what Councillor Sullivan was mentioning in regards to the community consultation, 30 days, is that normal?
I'll ask Mr Jeffries to respond to that.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I guess what we're proposing here is we undertake a community consultation process when we undertake the design. So we're not actually going out actively right now, but when we do some preliminary design work, then we'll go out in the community and do some initial consultation to inform that, to finalise that design, if that makes sense.
Is there a time frame on that?
Through you, Mr Mayor, we're adding it to our work schedule, so we've got quite a large design schedule at the moment, so it's likely to be in the next 12 months, but I couldn't put a month on it right now.
Only because we've waited 2 years for this report, Mr Mayor, so I'm just interested in speeding up that process since the Dales Creek community has waited 2 years. So,
Can I move that can I note that Councillor Murray has moved the recommendation with a request that it be expedited as quickly as possible?
yeah.
Councillors, do we have a seconder? Second to Councillor Sullivan. Councillors, any questions or dissent? No? Put the motion to a vote. Councillors, all in favour? Declare the motion carried. Item 13.3 is the advisory committees of council reports. No registered speakers. Councillors, you have a recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move this?
I'll move the recommendation on page 45, Mr Mayor.
Moved to Councillor Sullivan. Second to Councillor Minari. Councillors, any questions or any dissent? All in favour? Declare the motion carried. That moves to item 14, other reports, and councillors, we have no other reports, so we'll move to item 15. And we have one notice of motion from myself, so before we discuss that, councillors, I'll vacate the chair and ask Deputy Mayor Councillor Minari to take the chair.
Okay, councillors, you have a recommendation in your papers before you regarding the report. Do I have a councillor to move the recommendation? Councillor Ward, do I have a seconder?
Can I have a quick
Sorry,
question, if I may?
yes, Councillor Sullivan.
Madam Chair, I'm just trying to get a grasp of what we're trying to do here. Is it just fact-finding? What's council's involvement going to be on this going forward? What's it going to look like? Is it just fact-finding what's going on, like say a snapshot what's happening in the Shire? Is it intended we become interventionists in this space and council become a party to working in that space or being a provider? So I just want quite clear what this is. I know what I'm reading it and what have you, but what is it actually going to deliver for council and what participation going forward will council be involved in?
With respect to Councillor Ward, would you like to note, and also Mr CEO? Or who would like to go first?
It's Councillor.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Minari. Yeah, I'm happy to respond to that. Certainly this is the purpose of this notice of motion, Councillor Sullivan, is fact-finding. It's looking at, we have figures on the homelessness and those living marginally over the past few years, and given the population growth, I thought it may be appropriate to do a projection on the future numbers of those who may be homeless or living marginally in Moorabool. It's asking also council to identify how we can work in collaboration with the state and federal government. It does not commit council to any actions. It certainly doesn't imply and should not imply that council has a responsibility to address the issue of affordable housing and homelessness in Moorabool. But what has been recognised in discussions with the Council to Homeless Persons who I've spoken with and the National Local Government Community of Practice is that all levels of government have a role to play in this. So the Victorian Government has put out a homelessness and rough sleeping action plan, and it's, I suppose, encouraging council to have discussions with that level of government to work out how we can work in collaboration to identify what services may be available and what services are not available and which we can advocate to the state government to provide. So it doesn't commit council to working in isolation to address this problem, but it's more about identifying partnership opportunities with other levels of government.
Question,
Yes, Councillor Sullivan.
It's just if you go to point 7 and 8, it suggests or indicates council's going to be involved in this. You talk on 7, it says advocate, but on 8, MSC, Rural Shire Council, can develop effective homeless and housing strategies to develop the housing people need for home. And look, but my question is, are we in that space? Is that our part of our business, core business? That's all. I know that I'm not suggesting it is an issue that we're all we're all concerned about this, but at the end of the day, is it something that's other arms of government? And why will we be developing strategies?
Councillor Ward?
Yes, thank you. It's effectively asking us to work with other levels of government to work in partnership with their strategies. It does not suggest and should not be implied to suggest that we need to develop a housing strategy to tackle homelessness in Mirrabel. So maybe I've worded that point 8 incorrectly, but I'm happy to amend that to say that identify how Mirrabel Shire Council can develop effective homelessness and housing strategies with other levels of government to address the growing homelessness crisis.
Is there any other questions? Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Deputy Mayor, sorry. My question was, I understand we currently get statistics on homelessness in our area. I'm not how true really they are, but I'm not quite sure. Recently I've heard of 2 occasions in the Shire where people were sleeping in disabled toilets. So that does shock me a bit. But what is the Shire's role in homelessness at present? What has it been, apart from advocating for housing, social housing? What has that role been prior?
Is that to an officer, Councillor Berry?
Yes, thank you.
Through the chair, so there are 2 ways to sort of split the answer. One is there's certainly a planning component to it, which is, and Sarah may wish to speak to this in more detail through her technical lens. And then the other part of it is through the relationships and partnerships that we may have with agencies that support either rough sleepers or people who are requiring some support. So they're the two arms. At the moment, we do not have a designated resource that specifically looks at social and affordable housing. That's not currently part of the remit within council, but there are activities that are currently occurring at a level in both planning and partnerships. I'm not sure if Sarah wanted to add anything to that.
From a planning perspective, there's currently no controls or requirements in the planning scheme for developers to provide social or affordable housing. That is an option that is available should we wish to consider introduction of requirements or a social and affordable housing policy that could mandate for developers to provide, for example, a percentage, say 5% of a development be set aside for social and affordable housing.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? No, Councillor? Councillor Ward, you have moved the recommendation. Do I have a seconder?
I second the recommendation, Madam Chair.
Seconded by Councillor Edwards. Do I have any dissent?
I'll wait and see Madam Chair till the report comes back.
Yeah. Sorry, am I allowed to add something at this stage? Because I know the federal government is responsibility at the end of the day for national housing and homelessness. They have an agreement, and then we have the Department of Families, Fairness and Housing in Victoria. I'm happy to vote on what Councillor Ward's got up there in a positive manner, but I wouldn't like to see that we are taking over the roles of those agencies out there.
Right, we have a
Thank
mover
you.
and a seconder, so no dissent. All those in favour? Carried. State Councillor Sullivan has abstained. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Item 16 was notices of rescission, of which none have been received. Councillors, item 17 is the Mayor's report. Councillors, you have a written report, and this report needs to be accepted by a resolution prior to the details of the report being discussed. So I would ask Councillor to move the report. Councillor Edwards.
Mr Mayor.
Seconded Councillor Berry. All in favour? Carried. Councillors, thank you for that. I would like to, there's quite a considerable amount over the past month. It's been quite busy, but I just would like to mention there are a couple of things that were in my diary that I wasn't able to attend to an urgent medical procedure. So I'd like to thank Councillor Berry for stepping in. I'm trying to find those to Councillor Berry, but Councillor Berry stepped in and attended a couple of things on my behalf. It was on the 28th, actually, the Probus Bacchus Marsh 30th anniversary luncheon and the Indigenous community meeting. So thank you, Councillor Berry. That's the written report, but if you could bear with me, there are a couple of things I just want to verbally cover. I'd like to note the passing of Roger Druce, who passed away on Monday the 7th of August. Roger's contribution to Bacchus Marsh Aerodrome over 4 decades, 40 years, including the past 2 decades as volunteer manager of the aerodrome, had been incredible. He played a pivotal role in saving the Bacchus Marsh Aerodrome in the late 80s, early 90s when a federal review was taking place, and his contribution to the aerodrome cannot be understated. And evidence of the high regard and service he'd given to the aviation industry during his time at CASA and nationally in the gliding community was evident by the numbers attending and viewing his funeral. So I'd like the minutes to note that and pass our commiserations on to his family. I'd also like to note and congratulate a young Moorabool local, Zach Butters. Zach played his junior football at Darley. Only 700 players can play in the AFL and only 700 players can play in the AFLW out of a population approaching 27 million. So to make the AFL is an achievement, but for Zach Butters to be voted as the AFL Coaches Association Champion Player of the Year and the AFL Coaches Association Most Courageous Player of the Year is extraordinary. So congratulations to Zach. Also like to recognise and thank Matt Levy, OAM, who's a Paralympic swimmer who came to Moorabool to speak to the community and to launch his book. The book was Going the Distance, and Matt has represented Australia in a number of Paralympics and is a 3-time gold medalist, 1 silver and 6 bronze. So we thank you, Matt, for visiting our council. I'd also like to congratulate the Bacchus Marsh Basketball Association President, Mr Wayne Slack. Wayne was recently recognised at the Victorian Basketball Annual Awards dinner with a Lifetime Achievement Award for 50 years service to basketball in Victoria. He started out as a young and passionate player. He served as a coach, mentor, volunteer and administrator, and he's played a key role in the growth and reinvigoration of the Bacchus Marsh Basketball Stadium. And we congratulate Wayne on his service and thank him for his contribution to basketball in our community. I'm nearly finished, but I also wanted to make special mention. I attended the Bacchus Marsh Fire Brigade presentation night last Saturday night. The Bacchus Marsh Fire Brigade was established in 1911, so it's 112 years old, and congratulate all those who received awards on the night. But I wanted to make special mention to Nathan Ratcliffe, who is a life member of the Bacchus Marsh Fire Brigade, but he also received a 30-year service award from the CFA and was granted life membership of the CFA, which is incredible recognition. Him and his family's involvement in the Bacchus Marsh Fire Brigade stretches over 6 decades. So I was thrilled to be there to see him receive that award. My last one is I want to congratulate a female footballer who's achieved a first in our region. Kim Bessel is the first female in the Ballarat Football League women's competition and the AFL Goldfields women competition. Has been running for over 10 years to kick 100 goals in a season, and she finished the home and away season on 104 goals. That's quite noteworthy, and it's only been done once before in female football in the state. So that's an extraordinary achievement by Kim, and I congratulate her. And her and her side will be playing in the Ballarat Football League Women's Grand Final on Sunday, and I wish them all the best. Councillors, that is my Mayor's report. And we'll move on to, do I need an additional move to accept that, or is that done? No, I don't. Item 18, councillors, is councillors' reports. So I'm going to whip around the room and ask each councillor to provide their report, starting with Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. A couple of matters to report to Council. On the 24th of August, I attended a meeting at the Lau Lau Hall regarding the Lau Lau railway station. Big Track are in the process of refurbishing the facility and handing it over to the community. There's a lot of enthusiasm there, and they've still got a few issues to work through, but I think they're a very good group, and I think they'll work through that and to be a very positive attribute to our shire. On Wednesday the 30th of August till Friday the 1st of September, I attended the Timber Towns event in Portland, beginning with tours of the Port of Portland, which is a very busy port. 300 ships a day, 300 ships a year go in and out of that port, and they move millions of tonnes of grain, wood chips, logs. It's just an amazing facility, and to see it operating port was quite incredible. We had 2 tours of state-of-the-art sawmills, and these were something to behold, where computers scan the logs that come in, determine which is the best way for the log to be rotated, to be sawn, to get the maximum value out of the timber, out of the saw logs. These are pine logs that go through, that come out the other end. It is, to see it, you've got computer technology and state-of-the-art sawmill merging together with the sawmill, the saws that actually cut the timber have been able to rotate to make sure they get the maximum value out of every stick of timber that goes through. We also went on site to see a wood chipping operation. This is Blue Gum Plantations, where they chip on site and take it directly to the port. And this machine, it is unbelievable. I think it's about 1,200 horsepower V8 thing that just, I don't know how much fuel, it's 280 litres an hour or something it is, but it's just mechanisation is unbelievable. On the Friday we had our AGM and general meeting. Once again I was elected Treasurer for the next 12 months. I'd also like to present to Council the Timber Towns 2022-23 annual report and the Timber Towns Industry Road Evaluation Study, and as I said, part of which in the next period there's about 1.7 million will be coming into Moorabool Shire, which is a great outcome. The executive for the Timber Towns for the next 12-month period is Councillor Karen Stevens of Gannell, was elected as Chair, myself as Treasurer, Councillor Michael Leaney of Baw Baw as Deputy Chair, Councillor Tosh Finnegan of Colac Otway, Councillor Garner Smith of Gannawarra, Councillor Ian Getson of Golden Plains, and Mark Coleman of Wellington Shire, and Paul Phelan of Gannell Shire. So that'll be the executive for the next 12 months. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Can I just ask out of interest, how long have you been a member of the Timber Towns Executive and representing Moorabool?
I'd hate to think. Probably a good 10 years or more.
Yeah, amazing.
If not longer, probably.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Minari.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just had a few things on this month. I attended the Djerriwarrh District Scouts annual reports and awards presentation, and all the Scouts groups in the region come together to celebrate their achievements and also to celebrate not just the children that attend and have a great time learning different things, but also to celebrate the volunteers and the parents that put a lot of hard work into making sure that it continues to run. I also attended the Bacchus Marsh Chicory Kiln opening. It was lovely to see how that all used to work, and it's been restored really nicely and lots of lovely signs, so good for tourism in Bacchus Marsh. And I think that was all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Minari. Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to add to your report, Mr Mayor, Zach Butters and Liam Duggan from West Coast, only 2 representatives in the AFL country team. There was no other doubles in representation in that side, so good effort to both those boys, and Zach Butters is at Port Adelaide, an ex-Darley player. And found out Zach Butters was, I think he was only 16 or 17 when he played in his first senior grand final at Darley, so he's done amazing stuff. So, excuse me for my long report, I've been quite busy in August. So Thursday the 10th of August, was in Canberra for the Peri-Urban Council's Victoria delegations, where we met with the Honourable Catherine King, Minister McBain, Bella Fountain, who's the advisor to Minister Collins, Senator Brown, Assistant Minister for Infrastructure and Transport, talking on peri-urban issues around placemaking, tourism, transport connectivity and digital connectivity, all those issues. We talked about at the recent peri-urban meeting, which will, our strategic direction will change considerably because things are changing in the build-up of all our peri-urban councils. On the 15th, Tuesday the 15th of August, Peri-Urban Councils Victoria had delegations at Parliament House in Victoria with the Honourable Jacinta Allen, Minister for Transport Infrastructure, the Honourable Harriet Shing, Minister for Water, Minister for Regional Development, Mr Sean Thomas, Senior Advisor to the Honourable Melissa Horn, Minister for Local Government, Minister for Roads and Road Safety. Again, spoke on all the issues that peri-urban councils are experiencing, and it was great to hear Jacinta Allen knew all about Bacchus Marsh and all the issues around Bacchus Marsh that I started addressing for our council, and she pretty much jumped on top of me and said, "Moira, I understand the whole issues. I've been in Bacchus Marsh with the traffic going through there. It's quite chaotic." So on the 20th of August, on Sunday, I attended the Bacchus Marsh Guide Hall award to a member. Sorry, I'm remiss in not having her name here today, but she's done over 20 years service to the Girl Guides. She started in a metropolitan area. When she came up to Bacchus Marsh, she didn't know she wanted to get into some volunteering, so continued her service to the Girl Guides, and they are a great club there and do some magnificent work. On Tuesday the 22nd of August, I attended the Comida Fire Station, just representing council. I was asked by the Darley group who were fighting for the transmission lines to hear about their upcoming court case, which starts tomorrow, goes for 4 days. Any councillor or officers that are interested, you can go online and watch the court case. On Wednesday the 23rd of August, I attended the Bacchus Marsh Avenue of Honour strategy drop-in session at the library, and congratulations to staff there who were available to speak with the community, answering all their questions, and somewhat out of your normal working hours, which was fantastic. On Thursday the 24th of August at 1 p.m, I answered some questions around our long-awaited pool from a university student studying journalism at Deakin University. As a resident of Bacchus Marsh, she expressed her sadness on how long the community have been patiently waiting. So, yeah, she's studying journalism, and she chose positioning in our town of that long-awaited pool. So good luck to her and her studies. Thursday the 24th of August at 2 p.m, I attended Minister Ross Spencer's visit to Bacchus Marsh. We went to the stadium, which is just a magnificent facility, and I'm sure the people, residents around the Shire, can't wait for that stadium to be open, and I myself can't wait to see the activity that could be occurring in that stadium. We then went with Minister Ros Smith out to see Stage 2 of the Bacchus Marsh Racecourse Recreation Reserve. I myself can't believe every time I drive past there how much work that's been happening out there in Stage 2 and how quickly it's got going, and the build is looking magnificent. Then we went to Darley Pavilion, which was my first visit into Darley Pavilion, and wow, just another great works that the council have done. I was privileged to go into the pavilion on Saturday night after Darley beat won their first final. So we were able to go back and have some drinks. People were sitting around on the floor, which was nice to see, and everybody was commenting how great the Darley Pavilion is. Friday the 25th of August, 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, attended the PUCV August board meeting, working on PUCV strategy moving forward, and it was great to have Caroline Busen there in place of the CEO, and from all accounts I think she got thoroughly enjoyed the 4 hours there, I believe. On Monday the 28th of August at 11:30 I attended the Probus Club Bacchus Smash 35th birthday luncheon in place of Mr Mayor at the Bacchus Smash Bowling Club, where they were presented with a certificate of commendation for their 35 years of being Probus in Bacchus Smash, and I must say I highly recommend, as something you're looking for in retirement, some fun, friendship and fellowship. Highly recommend anybody looking to join a group like that. They do lots of fun activities. On Monday at 2:30, that same day, then went to the Bacchus Marsh community meeting, met the CEO from Badak Ballarat, Ngualla representation, which this group very passionate about progressing towards setting up services for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, and it's looking very promising for the area because, as Mr Mayor did tell me, there was a gap in where people needed to go for assistance around Aboriginal affairs. Tuesday the 29th of August at 6 p.m. I attended the Moorabool Landcare Network AGM at the Baland Chambers, here, right in this chair, as guest speaker Julie Cameron, owner of the Meredith Dairy, spoke on strategic direction her farm has taken. They now have 9 dairy farms. For years ago, her and her husband saw a vision setting up a farm. There, she had some old photos, which was a very bare-looking farm with a creek running through it. They have done lots of great environmental and sustainability work around planting fauna and planting flora that encourage the fauna back into their farm. We were lucky to taste some of I don't know if everybody knows the Meredith Dairy Farm, very famous for their goat's cheese. She brought in jars around that everybody could help themselves, and provided a salad with all the nice cheeses in it too for the dinner. I must say there was about 16 here, I think, so there's lots of participation in the Landcare network in our Shire, which is fantastic to see. Friday the 1st of September and 2nd of September, Bacchus Marsh were graced with Paralympian swimmer Matt Levy, as Mr Mayor did announce before, as an OAM attendance. I attended at the Town Hall. He was delivering a free talk and question session on his achievements as a Paralympian. He started in 2004 and was a member of competing team for 5 Paralympic Games and had achieved 9 gold, 6 silver and 11 bronze medals out of all his achievements through the Paralympic Games. His swimming career spanned for a long length of time. He's still into swimming, but not so. I was privileged to actually give him a bed for the night, and we heard all about his story. He was born 600 grams, and by the age of 12, he'd had 30 to 40 operations. So just amazing. He's legally blind and has cerebral palsy. You wouldn't know. As far as the legally blind, he's got no peripheral, but excellent talk. Quite a few locals attended, had many questions for him, so the session went very well. On September 5th, Tuesday, I attended the Pram and Story Walk at Telford Park, so congratulations to council staff who organised that, and congratulations on braving the freezing cold over, and that was at the Sculptor Walk at Telford Park. The wind was whipping around the hill there. It was freezing, but council staff braved it, and there was some of the community came out. Little kids had a story. They'd placed some little animals around the track, which was very beneficial to the young ones. At 2:30, then the Tourism Midwest Destination Management Plan attended here in the council chambers. Great participation, and there were some great conversations around what could happen in our Shire for tourism. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Busy month, Councillor Berry. Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
I've got nothing of interest to report to council, but I would like to reiterate the loss of Roger Druce. I'm glad you raised that tonight. He's Not only was he a stalwart for the aerodrome, but he was one of the last true gentlemen. And anyone that's dealt with him would know he's a decent person, honest and great to work with, so he's a huge loss.
Indeed. Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillors, that concludes the councillor's report. I do need a notice of motion to someone to council and move that. Councillor Minari has moved that. Seconded Councillor Edwards. All in favour? Carried. Item number 19, councillors, is on the agenda is urgent business. So we'll just whip around the room and ask if councillors have any items of urgent business. Councillor Sullivan.
No urgent business, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Minari.
No urgent business, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Berry.
No urgent business, thanks, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Edwards.
No, Mr Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move to the next item on the agenda. And councillor, section 20 on the agenda, item 20 on the agenda is we have 3 reports to be considered in a closed session of the meeting to the public this evening. So, councillors,
I'll move we go into confidential, Mr Mayor.
do ask. Councillor Edwards has moved it. Councillor Berry has seconded it. All in favour? Councillor, I declare the motion carried and we'll move into confidential.
We just make sure.